Hi, I'm General Booty. I'm the quarterback at the University of Oklahoma, and you are now tuned into the greatest podcast on turf. Enjoy.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's first episode from the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
I'm Anthony.
And we got our yearly sleepers episode. We got a lot of guys on this list. Anthony has about 10, give or take. I got about 10, give or take. And we're going to be running through them. These are guys that are getting drafted 8 and later rounds, or guys that they're starting to kind of fall down the cracks a little bit that we think could finish a lot higher than they should. Before we get into it, little message from our sponsor.
Yeah, Little Italy Pizza Shop located in Townsend, Delaware. It is my family's business. If you go into our Townsend location, our only location, and if you show proof you're subscribed, you will get a discount. And if I'm there and you show me proof, if you show proof you're subscribed, I will personally buy your dinner for you and or your family, whoever you are feeding. So here we go. Without further ado, also we are uploading our Fantasy Football My Guys episode later in the week. About 6 guys that we are targeting in every single one of our fantasy football drafts. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any of our fantasy football or NFL uploads.
My first guy that I'm going to mention, this is the guy that is being drafted the highest of my whole entire list. It is J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens. He's a guy that I absolutely hated last season. He was one of my busts, and I said do not draft him. However, this season, I'm back on the train because his ADP is getting lowered. He's a 5th, 6th round pick now, and I think that's pretty good value. Last season, he was battling an injury. He didn't look the best.
Nope.
At that second half, the last 4 games that he played of the season, finishes the RB9, 18, 37, and 23. And he barely played any of the snaps in those games. He only had 15, 13, 12, and 17 carries, all for, about 400 yards, a couple of touchdowns. So he balled out those last 4 weeks, and I think that we can see kind of a similar situation this offseason. He kind of got pushed back down again because he was sitting out, holding out, but now he's back practicing. He looks pretty good. From what I heard, his first practice did look pretty good. And I think this Ravens offense is going to take a step forward. So J.K. Dobbins is a guy with the discounted price. I would love to have him. You got Mr. RB3. I would love that.
Yeah, I was all set on J.K. Dobbins the moment he said he was holding out, or they implied he was holding out because he wanted a contract when he didn't earn it or deserve it. I traded him away in my Dynasty League, which could come back and bite me in the butt. But as a sleeper, I don't hate it. My first sleeper, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. The only quarterback on either of our lists, I think, just because the top guys are...
I got one, but I'll say it quick too.
Kind of all set. Desmond Ridder of the Atlanta Falcons. In 4 games last year, he had 708 yards with 2 touchdowns and no picks. Yes, his QBR was very low, 49.8. They threw the ball a lot. 115 times in 4 games. I feel like that's a lot, no? What does that average out to a game?
30 times a game. That's a lot.
Yeah. And, I mean, if you look at it, they got him Bijan Robinson, a young quarterback and young quarterbacks tend to lean heavily on their running backs, especially in early development. They got that. They have their young all-pro tight end, one of the best tight end draft prospects we've ever seen in Kyle Pitts. Yes, he's coming off the injury. I think he'll be fine, though. They do have Drake London, the team's future receiver 1. Outside of them 3, the weapons are very thin, but they have every single weapon on the offense figured out. Now, it is just a matter of, is Desmond Ridder going to be good or not? Desmond Ridder will probably be a waiver wire guy unless Atlanta comes out and goes crazy. But if you're in a dynasty league and if you're in a league where a lot of your guys take 2 quarterbacks and you kind of wait till toward the end of the draft to grab your second quarterback, Desmond Ridder might not be a bad option. He's on a team with a good offensive coordinator, very good players around him behind a good offensive line. Again, I'm not saying use a bunch of capital on him. He's probably not getting drafted in leagues that aren't dynasty. So it's not going to take much capital to get him, but I like Desmond Ridder as a sleeper this year.
Yeah, and I'll mention my quarterback. It's Geno Smith, top 10 quarterback last year, and I think he could definitely follow that back up again. But a thing I want to mention, if you're in a 10-team league, I think, quarterbacks are going to be very, very plentiful for you. You can get whatever quarterback you want, and there's guys that are there late that I think could suffice just as good as other guys. So if you wanted to take, a Josh Allen because you wanted the positional advantage, sure, go ahead and do it. However, if you don't get, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Fields, Lamar, like the top echelon, the potential guys that could be QB1, and it wouldn't shock you at all, I think you should wait and punt it down the line. You can get a Dak Prescott pretty damn late, and I would be fine with Dak Prescott as my quarterback one. You can get Deshaun Watson. I'd be fine with Watson as my quarterback one. You can get Geno. I'd be fine with him. You can get Kirk Cousins. You don't love it, but you're fine with it. You can get Tua. Don't love it, but we've seen he's put up production. You can get Aaron Rodgers. Don't love it, but fine with it.
Yeah.
And these are guys that are quarterbacks like 8 through 15. Daniel Jones. Don't love it, but I'm fine with it. Those are 7 quarterbacks that are getting drafted after round 10 that I would be fine with my quarterback one.
I feel like walking away with
and
just because you said it, I feel like walking away with Kirk Cousins is like your QB1 out of a fantasy draft. It's like walking away with like James Conner.
Yeah, it's so gross.
Or like walking away with Miles Sanders before last season.
It's
like
so gross, but it's so just true at the
Tyler
same time.
Higbee.
Yeah.
Another guy, it's like, damn, but he's going to do good, but it's ugly.
Yeah, it's like you're not going to be able to trade him because nobody's going to be like, I don't want that guy.
Yeah.
But you're just like, he gets me points every week,
Yeah. My next sleeper on the list, taking a trip to the running back lane here. I'm going to go with Samaje Perine, running back of the Denver Broncos. It's tough because it sounds like Javante's way ahead on his progress from tearing up his knee pretty bad and missing most of last season. This is one of the more... He tore his knee up pretty bad. But I say this because you're able to get Samaje Perine in a fantasy football draft around... What did we say, the 9th, 10th round-ish? Maybe 11, depending on who you're drafting with.
And how big your league is.
But I look at it like this. You could be drafting Samaje Perine way too early if he's just the RB2 we saw in Cincy who will flash, but he'll probably be a waiver guy by after week 2 or 3. Or you could be getting a Samaje Perine that is a starting running back for the Denver Broncos in the 10th, 11th round, who revamped their offensive line, bought in a new head coach with a Javonte Williams who tore his knee up, and most likely due to historically running backs coming off of knee injuries don't normally bounce back and just pick up right where they left off. So that's the kind of chance you're taking. I would 100,000% say those goes without saying. If you draft Javonte Williams, you have to make it a priority to draft Samaje Perine. You have to. Also, in Sean Payton offenses, he likes to throw to the ball to running backs a lot. Javonte Williams is not going to be catching passes out of the backfield most likely for this Broncos team. It will be Samaje Perine. So if you don't go heavy on running backs, or if you draft Javonte Williams, or if you just want some solid RB depth down the board in your draft Samaje Perine. He's in a good situation, and he has the potential to be a season-long starting running back on a team that could be pretty good this year.
So to touch on the Javonte Williams situation, a lot of people don't understand that just because his knee is fine doesn't mean the rest of his leg is fine. People don't just gain trust in the knee that just got absolutely torn apart just like that. It takes a while for you to gain trust in it, for you to actually put weight on it. Michael Gallup, we saw last year his legs were 2 different sizes.
J.K. Dobbins, we saw, they rushed him back from it, and he missed a bunch of time last year.
Saquon, the list goes on and on. And I'll segue into my next guy, Michael Gallup. I'm just going to make this short and sweet. He is a very, very late round draft pick. He is on a Dallas Cowboys team that throws the ball a lot, and he is 1 year removed from his ACL surgery, so should be fine. And this is the time to get him after the year after.
Also, to touch on Michael Gallup, a guy who I had in my mind, but I forgot to write down, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, he's a value. Everybody knows who Brandon Cooks is, but he's James Conner and Tyler Higbee.
Yeah.
Segue in Tyler Higbee.
All right.
Segues are just beautiful.
Love it.
Tyler Higbee is a guy who, this is a pure system play. This isn't a talent play. This isn't a Tyler Higbee's a stud play. This is just, he is on a Rams team that is going to get destroyed in every single damn game that they're in because their defense is so bad. They have one player. And it's just, the team just sucks. So what happens in that situation? You're going to be blown out, and you're going to need to pass the ball a lot in the second half. Who's going to catch the passes? Cooper Kupp, yes. Cooper Kupp is going to eat. He's going to have a shit ton of targets. If he stays healthy, he's probably going to break the record. Or you got Tyler Higbee. The nice safe down, check down kind of guy who's going to get 6 catches a game for about 50 yards, and you're going to be fine with it because the rest of the tight ends in the NFL you cannot trust. But Tyler Higbee will be a guy you can trust.
My next guy, I'll stick to the tight end theme we got going on. And this is a name you probably didn't hear of until middle of last season when he caught like 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns in a game. And that is the New Orleans Saints starting tight end, Juwan Johnson. Now, yes, Juwan Johnson is listed as the team's tight end 1, excuse me. Yes, they have a kind of a loaded running back room with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. I don't care. Juwan Johnson is probably going to eat in this offense with Derek Carr. We saw Derek Carr turn Darren Waller into a top 3 tight end in the league for a couple years. We've seen Derek Carr have extreme success with bigger body type of weapons. We saw what he did with Michael Crabtree, Darren Waller. Juwan Johnson, 6'4", 230. Fits the build of a player that has thrived with Derek Carr throwing him the ball. He was involved. He was not very good last year. He only had 500 yards, but he had 7 touchdowns. 4 of them came in 2 games. Touchdowns here and there. I think he'll be fine, though. The Saints struggled at quarterback last year. They had like a 3-quarterback thing going with Jameis for a minute. Then it was Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill kind of rotating back and forth. They bought in Derek Carr for a reason. I'm not saying go draft Juwan Johnson. If you're getting Juwan Johnson, it's probably as your tight end too. I personally like to hold either 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends, depending on the capital I spend. Like if I get Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to hold a second quarterback. I'll opt to hold a second tight end, vice versa. But I'm saying if you get a tight end who you're not so sure on or you don't typically love, like if you draft a Darren Waller or a Kyle Pitts coming off the injury or a TJ Hawkinson who could see up and down targets and up and down numbers, grab a guy like Juwan Johnson who could pop off. He's 26 years old, famous on TikTok, just had a baby. It's got all the makings for him to really break out this year.
He does not look 26 years old.
And he played at Oregon and Penn State.
If you asked me how old Juwan Johnson is, I would have told you 35.
No, he's 26. He was born 9/13/96.
I believe it, but I'm telling you, like, if you told me, like, if you asked me for an episode, 35. Next guy I'd like to mention, who is surprisingly older than Juwan Johnson and the tight end, is Gerald Everett.
Nice.
This is bottom of the barrel.
No.
However,
go ahead and then I'll give me my flowers.
Okay, whatever. However, he wasn't that good last year. You can pipe down on that. We can pull it up, but he was ass last year.
I'm not saying he was great. I mean, look, there's a lot of green.
Okay.
But 50's bad, okay. Is that 94? My God.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 6 games. You know, he finished as tight end 15.
Okay.
Gerald Everett is a guy who, it's nasty. It's gross. If you're in a 10-team league with just one tight end, don't draft him.
Nope.
If you're in a deep league, let me tell you why it might be good. I'm like talking myself out of it. But Gerald Everett is a guy who is on a loaded Chargers team. I get it. However, Kellen Moore's in town. And if you believe in Kellen Moore and what he does, then Gerald Everett is your guy. Because Kellen Moore has never had a bad tight end fantasy season in his entire career. He even produced Jason Witten having a good year when he was 37 years old. So if you can get Jason Witten to have a decent damn year, then you should be able to get Gerald Everett to have one. And that is the only basis of my argument. That's it.
I would just like to say, I'm going to give us our flowers. You and I are flowing right now because my next player is also a Charger.
Nice.
Quentin Johnston.
Nice. Love to see it.
Probably going to start out as the team's receiver 3 just because they have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and they have so much capital in them guys. But again, historically speaking,
Hey, never played a season.
Keenan Allen and Mike Williams
I've never played
are guys who historically and are notorious for having the Q, the red Q next to their name, or the yellow Q, and the red out in all caps.
Yeah.
Listen, you can't bank on injuries in football, I know, but I'm just, again, part of the base of my argument is historically speaking. Can you tell me Quentin Johnston's ADP real quick? But Quentin Johnston, again,
8-12. So if you're in a 12-team league, end of the 8th round.
and that ain't bad.
No.
To get a Quentin Johnston, who is a highly touted NFL draft prospect, who was a first-round pick on a Chargers team with a lot of holes that they could have filled.
And that throws the ball a hell of a lot of times.
And that throws the ball more than any team ever historically, dating back to the Phillip Rivers days of the Chargers.
Or the Breeze days.
Or the Drew Brees days. I'm just saying, I mean, getting a Quentin Johnston in the 8th round, depending on how you go, depending on how deep your league is, you could end up getting Quentin Johnston as your receiver 4, who you could end up starting some weeks, historically speaking, if the Chargers receiver room goes the way it goes. I mean, we saw last year, what were the guys? Josh Palmer.
Josh Palmer.
I know, it's like on the tip of my
God
tongue.
damn. Carter.
Yeah.
Definitely DeAndre Carter.
Yes, DeAndre Carter. I mean, we saw those guys being waiver wire pickups. Those guys seeing numbers. Jalen Guyton, another guy. I mean, just these random guys that were producing in the Chargers offense. And if you're adding a first-round pick, highly touted prospect, Quentin Johnston, to that equation, and you can get him as your receiver 3 or receiver 4 in your fantasy team in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, again, depending on how deep your league is and who you're drafting with, that is extremely good value. Now, I will say it's going to be very tough to segue into this next one, but I think I have an idea. Oh, I got it. Go ahead.
Segue.
No, I'm saying after you finish with him, I'm going to segue
Oh.
into my next guy.
I thought you were going to throw me a lob. My next guy is Jerick McKinnon.
Physically couldn't off of that. Could have gone somewhere with the AFC West.
I don't know. Jerick McKinnon. He was the guy last year that did absolutely nothing until about week 13, and then he turned into an absolute freak of nature. 13, 29, 30, 11, 20, and then 7 at week 18.
That
Week
was the
18
last
don't
game.
matter.
That don't count.
But that last 5 weeks, he was the best running back in football and fantasy football purposes, and he is a guy that is barely being drafted right now. ADP 11. You could probably get him later. He's a guy that nobody wants to have on their fantasy football team, besides Anthony Alentrio and Ryan Sawyer.
Yeah.
This is a guy who I drafted heavy when he went to San Francisco.
Yeah, you did.
And he got hurt. They literally, holy shit, he didn't play football 2017, 2020.
He was in Minnesota for a minute. Traded to San Fran.
I literally drafted him in 2018. Early-ish, not that early, but
And
I
he
loved
didn't
him.
even play.
I was like, yo, this is my guy. This is him. Jimmy G tears ACL. McKinnon tears ACL. And I think one of the receivers tore their ACL. That seemed like all of them just bang, bang, bang. But Jerick McKinnon is a guy who talented on a Chiefs offense that loves passing to everybody. And Jerick McKinnon is a pass catcher. Athleticism out the damn charts. Very fast. Can catch passes. Beautiful. We love it.
That Niners team, by the end of the season, Nick Mullins, Matt Breida, Pierre Garcon, 32.
I had George Kittle. That was the year George Kittle popped the hell off.
88 catches, 1,300 yards, 5 touchdowns.
I predicted the George Kittle. I literally had every single Niner, and I was like, I'm all in on this team.
Dude, I mean,
it worked out for me.
That was the year the
Kittle.
Patriots traded for Jimmy G. But anyways, speaking of pass-catching backup running backs, Chris Evans and Chase Brown of the Bengals. Chris Evans, pretty much, to backtrack a little bit, the Bengals lost to J.P. Ryan, who was their featured primary pass-catching running back. They're looking for someone to replace him. Joe Mixon has never been the guy to catch many passes. I mean, we saw playoff games last year when Cincy was in like a lot of drives. Joe Mixon wasn't seeing the field just because they were throwing the ball a lot. You're getting one of these two is going to work out Probably both will go undrafted and be waiver wire guys. But if you grab a Joe Mixon, it's looking like Chris Evans has the hunch right now just because he ran the ball so well during the preseason game. Yes, it's only been one game. It is subject to change. But to keep it short and sweet, one of these handcuff running backs in Cincinnati will work out, especially if you get Joe Mixon, because they just don't like to keep Joe Mixon in when they throw the football. So one of them's got to work, and right now, it's Chris Evans.
Speaking of mid-handcuff running backs, Kenneth Gainwell.
Oh, I'm going right.
What a segue.
Oh, dude, wait, look at my next one. I'll go back to back with you.
Beautiful. Kenneth Gainwell is a
We
guy.
are floating right now.
I can't even pull up his stats. I don't even care to pull up his stats. Kenneth Gainwell is the guy who is on an Eagles team that has a backfield that you want no parts of unless it's Kenneth Gainwell at the very end. If you draft DeAndre Swift around where he's being drafted right now, I sincerely apologize for you. I'm sorry.
Shouldn't be playing fantasy because you're a jackass, is what Ryan's saying.
Listen, I could be dead wrong and I'd be an idiot, but if you take DeAndre Swift over, let's just take a gander. Cam Akers, Dalvin Cook, James. I don't even care if Dalvin Cook's splitting the backfield with Breece Hall. James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, Rashad White, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery. If you take him over any of those guys, I'm very sorry for you.
Yep.
DeAndre Swift is a guy who might be cut. Wouldn't shock me. He's a guy who we just don't know, but we do know that he played in preseason. What we also know is that Kenneth Gainwell did not play in preseason. That matters.
Yeah, it does.
He didn't play. I don't think Jalen Hurts played. Right? Jalen Hurts didn't play.
I doubt it.
So if
I
Jalen
didn't
Hurts,
watch the game, but
you got to think about it like this: why would they put out the starting running back if the starting quarterback isn't out there? They wouldn't.
No, Jalen Hurts didn't play.
You don't. You play all the starters, or you play none of the starters.
Jaden Hazelwood, Greg Ward, Tyree Cleveland,
Trey Sermon,
Ian Book.
Yeah.
Tanner McKee, Kennedy Brooks.
These are the guys that played for the Eagles.
Yes.
And we can throw in Mr. DeAndre Swift. I know he played the first drive. However, Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott did not play.
Yes.
If we look, there's ways to look at this. There's ways of the Eagles are just going to play them next game and they're just going to do like a committee to make sure everybody's fresh. If that's the case, you want none of them.
Nope.
However, if I'm right about how... Listen, when Jalen Hurts plays... Kenneth Gainwell is going to be on the field because Kenneth Gainwell is going to be playing.
Yeah.
When Jalen Hurts didn't play, that's when DeAndre Swift played. It matters. Preseason stats don't matter. Preseason snaps matter and who's on the field with them. So there's no way I'm touching DeAndre Swift with a 10-foot pole.
And I mean, not to mention Kenneth Gainwell was arguably the Eagles' feature running back the deeper they got in their playoff run.
Yeah.
He popped off against the Giants. I think he had 120 yards. Then after that, you saw him and Miles Sanders splitting a lot more of the touches. Now, this is kind of a reach, but that could have been due to the fact that they knew they were going to lose Miles Sanders, and they knew they weren't bringing him back. So they're like, okay, let's see what we got as playoffs, whatever. But either way, Kenneth Gainwell is a guy, again, off the things Ryan said, the Steelers sucked last year. Holy shit. Anyways, speaking of mid-handcuff running backs, Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moral of the story short, I've seen it with my own two eyes. If Najee Harris was not playing good last year, Jaylen Warren was getting touches. They saw a 50-50 split in some games last year. And something tells me Najee Harris might be on a thin leash this season. He's due for a contract extension at the end of he's eligible for a contract extension at the end of the season. He's a first-round running back, and he hasn't really lived up to the hype. Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Warren, as the season went on last year, the last weeks of the season, 11, 6, 12, 6 carries with 4 targets, 3 targets, 2 targets, 3 targets, 1 target. As the season went on last year, Jaylen Warren was more involved than you think. We saw the Steelers play the New Orleans Saints. Jaylen Warren and Najee were splitting carries. That was right around the time when Mike Tomlin's like, okay, like kind of alluded to it. So if you want to take a shot at a sleeper guy like I like to do a lot in the last round of my drafts, Jaylen Warren can't hurt, especially if you have Najee.
Yeah, I'm out of sleepers, but I do have a couple of values that I'll just mention.
4. Holy shit.
I'll just mention them real quick. This guy's not a sleeper. There's no way he's a sleeper.
I had him in the wrong spot.
The first one, just a couple of values. Tyler Lockett, he's being drafted late again. He's never finished late. I know he's a big headache when it comes to starting week by week, but he's always a value where he's being taken. And James Conner, ugly name, we get it. If you have Kirk Cousins, James Conner, Brandon Cooks, and Tyler Higbee on your team, I'm gonna try that. That's just team value. So James Conner is my last guy I'll mention. Who you got?
Just a few other guys I have on this list. I'll keep some of them short and sweet. Deontay Johnson. I'm going to keep this quick. There's literally no way possible that Deontay Johnson does not catch a single touchdown this season.
There's no way he can have less touchdowns than last year.
It does not get worse. Darren Waller. Giants spent some capital to get him. Daniel Jones at times last year from the Giants football I watched, it seems like he was looking for a tight end. He had some solid seasons with Evan Ingram, and adding another threat to that Giants passing offense for Daniel Jones, who they just paid, help, shows they believe in him. They bought him in for a reason. And Dalton Kincaid, the Bills drafted him in he was a first rounder, right?
Yep.
They drafted him. They traded up for him in the first round for a reason. He is everything that Dawson Knox isn't. And he could be that true second option in Buffalo that they've been looking for that can kind of space the field out, help Diggs get open. And Josh Allen does throw to his tight ends. We've seen they produce in the red zone and they produce going downfield. Dawson Knox just hasn't been that guy, and they got their guy in Dalton Kincaid.
Another guy, not to cut you off, on the Bills, Gabe Davis, I think it's sneaky. It's ugly.
Yeah.
But in theory, might happen.
All right, so for some social media content, who are your two biggest sleepers on your list for fantasy football this year? Your two biggest ones.
Two biggest, deepest, or
like your two sleepers that you're most confident in. And it's tough because your list is gross, but who are the sleepers that you are most confident in?
I would say two guys that I'm most confident in to bring you back value to where they are being drafted would be, I'll do three. Jordan Addison is the luxury one. He's getting drafted late. But the two ugly guys, Tyler Higbee, it's so ugly, but it's there. And Jerick McKinnon, you're drafting him so late to the upside that he has. I think you have to do it.
Yeah, I would say my two would be, I would say Dalton Kincaid, obviously. High-powered offense in Buffalo. His ADP is about 117th. I don't know what that equivalates to.
12th round.
12th, 13th round. That's great value for a rookie tight end. Buffalo has a lot of capital and that's something that they've desperately been looking for, and Dawson Knox just hasn't been that guy. And I'm going to stick on the rookie train here, Quentin Johnson. I mean, historically speaking, again, I'll reiterate, that Chargers receiving room historically just isn't the healthiest. They have a lot of capital in Quentin Johnson. There's so many other holes they could have used. They could have filled with that first-round draft pick they had, but they chose Quentin Johnson for a reason. So Dalton Kincaid and Quentin Johnson are my two biggest sleepers that I think will have the biggest impact this year, and I'm most confident in them. And yeah, with that being said, thank you guys for watching and listening. Don't forget to check out our My Guys episode coming later this week, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.
Peace.